Hello, and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got James Maxwell, Ty Lee. Deja vu all over again, folks. The Oklahoma Sooners lose another close game that could have been completely avoided, falling to the West Virginia Mountaineers 23-20 on virtue of a West Virginia game-winning field goal. I mean, look. I already went on a rant like on Saturday about it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find it there. If not, it's not on the podcast stream. It's not really worth your time. Just listen to this one instead. But let's dive into it. So I'm just gonna let Jameson start. Is this team gonna just like ever learn anything? Are they ever gonna change anything?
I think that there's minor changes that are happening almost every week that I can kind of look at and be like, oh, that got better. But then there's something that's right next to it that got 2 times worse. And I'm like, well, here we go. And we're just not making any ground. We're not getting better. And it's just a shame. And kind of my overall thought process on OU, I'm not mad. I'm more so like embarrassed and feel like I'm helpless. That's kind of what I feel like. I feel like I'm really worried about the future of Oklahoma, and I have not had that thought process for a really long time. All of the people talking about saying, oh, you should be scared going into the SEC. Now those insecurities are coming deep down into me. Can we keep a recruiting class right now that wants to come into a brand new coaching system that is 5-5 right now in the Big 12? There's so many questions, and I feel helpless.
I think that's fair. Ty?
I think this is the worst one yet. I mean, this is the worst team that we've lost to. But this one even feels different from the Baylor one. I think I maybe made the argument after Baylor that was our worst loss because we could have won that one realistically and maybe should have by some metrics. This one, we should have won it. Even down to like the last drive. Until we were down to right at the end, I was just kind of complaining about the cover for the weekend spread, our other podcast that we do later on in the week where we break down lines and gambling and stuff. And then with like a few seconds left, I was like, wait a second, are we just about to lose? Like what is going on? It did not make sense because we had it in hand. Obviously we never took off with it. We never shut them down, but it seemed like we had it in hand. And it really just comes down to, I mean, we'll get into it, but just some coaching decisions when it came to punting. And then, I would argue that no call or that no penalty on a guy giving himself up, kneeling in the end zone. I understand that, that another penalty, maybe making that a non-play, but you're still got a hit to a guy giving himself up. And,
That play was a great it was a great scapegoat, honestly, for OU fans to take their hatred out on. I'm not really in the camp as much as you, Ty. There was an offsides on it as well, so I don't know if that would have been an after the play 15-yard penalty. That would have been a net 10 yards for OU, which would have been a significant thing. But that 4th down conversion was a long conversion. They already gained a lot of yards
both
on
times.
it.
Yeah.
Butterfly effect. I don't know what coverage would have been any different. And if they ran a different play, so on and so on. But it's like, I'm not pointing my finger at that play. There's a lot more.
No, but I feel like it's worthy of
kicking field goals and 1 of 11 on 3rd down, drop passes. I mean, there's so many more things.
Well, that's a good segue for us to just get right into it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, the theme of this across the board, no matter what it is, if it's penalties, if it's alignment, if it's just making a play, the lack of attention to detail is completely just, it's so evident. And it's so frustrating to me because I think entering this season, we all kind of knew and all kind of agreed that, look, this team is not going to be as talented as it has been in the past. The talent isn't quite there yet. But what we were sold on was that they're going to be disciplined and that they're going to be hard-nosed and they were going to appreciate the details, that they were going to work on the details. And the details across the board have not really improved. Offsides where guys are like, in the neutral zone, brutally there, Mims dropping just wide open passes, Gabriel still missing Mims wide open again. It's just the details are just completely off. And frankly, they don't look like they care all that much to fix it. And I think that's the frustrating thing is it doesn't seem like there's a ton of urgency to win football games. And it just begs the question, what is this team? Like, what are they? What do they do well at? I don't think they do anything good at anything. Because they're just average across the board. They don't try hard. They don't care. And they don't care to get better. They don't make the improvement. And it's really frustrating to see as a fan.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. To sort of dive into some less complaining things and really start to point fingers, because that's the fun thing. But personally, I have a belief that I sort of stumbled upon. I am sure, I haven't looked it up. I'm sure there's a lot of other people who have been screaming about this all season, but it doesn't really seem to me like there's a whole lot of leadership within the locker room. In how I'm coming to that conclusion is the things that you can look at, like when they're on the sideline, in between plays and things like that, when the players are interacting, is there a guy out there rallying the troops, so to speak? And I like to use the Baker Mayfield comparison because it's very obvious right in your face. You know, the way he was as a leader, as a on the team leader at OU. We're talking about at OU and getting buy-in from the team and from the players and being able to motivate people and maybe make up for some of those gaps and the coaches maybe not necessarily motivating people, which, you know, that's a whole nother can of worms. You know, someone can be a good motivator and they're just not connecting with someone or something like that. There's a whole host of factors that go into that. But I really feel like obviously we have captains, we have guys who are sort of leaders within the locker room, but it really helps when your leader within the locker room is not a guy making glaring mistakes. So if you had to point to like two leaders, you know, we've always pointed to Danny Stutzman as a sort of a cultural leader, team cultural leader on the defense. Yeah, Broyles as well on the defensive side, and then on the offensive side, you know, naturally you have your quarterback, but you also have guys like Eric Gray, you know, our leading guy, and then who knows what's going on in the receiving room. But it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of buy-in from the other players when, you know, it's finger pointing time and everyone's sort of turning on each other. And it seems like it was a shaky sort of low level leadership situation to begin with. And I think that's part of the lack of buy-in too, because the coaches can have the strategy and everything all they want and get the motivation from the players. But if the players aren't there for each other, you know, that team environment, that family team environment, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I don't think Stutzman is much of a leader as well. Some people in the chat, Jamie's saying that in the chat. It's Broyles, and we probably lost him for the season because he's a high energy guy. But the thing is, most of the time, whenever you have leaders, they're older guys, and they've been there and they've done that, and they've gone through the ringer and they know what to do. The thing is, everyone's on the same level right now. We don't have any veterans in the Brent Venables scheme. We have veterans of the Alex Grinch scheme on defense and, you know, the Lincoln Riley offense, but that's not the case anymore. We don't have those things. So everyone's at square one. So whenever your older guys are going out there and they're not doing well and they're not setting an example, they're like our old defensive backs, linebackers, defensive linemen continue to line up wrong, commit penalties, go up the wrong gap. That's not a leader. They're not setting it by example. So there's really nothing to look forward to. And it's at the point where, do we just start playing all of the young guys as much as we can and just say, screw it. They're going to get as much, you know, experience as possible because they're our future. We heard it a lot today with this NIL of trying to keep OU's players. These older guys are going to be fleeing across the country. The portal is going to be nuts. One, because it's horrible play. And two, this is a culture that they don't want to play in because they got spoiled with never going in, watching film, being late to practice, barely working out with the Alex Grinch, Lincoln Riley scheme. And three, like, are you kidding me? Do they have any belief in them by the fan base? They don't want to be with this team anymore. They've given up.
Yeah. It's kind of like we have a situation where we have 22 Spencer Radlers at the moment in terms of, you know, getting blamed, you know, because I mean, look, if things go,
no, we do not.
Look,
no, there are Eric Gray.
Look,
Drake Stoops,
Except for
we
Eric.
love you guys. You guys are not getting
Okay,
blamed.
good point.
But
Good
they're
point,
both
good
gone
point.
next year too, and it's not
Yeah,
like
well,
they're
yeah,
transferring.
that's the
One's
thing.
graduating,
Well-
one's going to go to the draft. And I guarantee you, Eric Gray, be happy because I would not be surprised if we lose versus Bedlam. What's stopping Eric Gray from just shutting it down after that?
I wouldn't blame him.
Going to the
If
NFL? Just like I'm out. Like we've already got,
I
I don't care about trying to get to the 6th win anymore. I mean, I got to protect myself, and I ain't going to play in the bowl game either. I mean, I'd hope he's not like that. But
Hey,
I don't
Jameson, the Liberty Bowl means something these days, buddy.
versus freaking Arizona. God,
I
bless
do
America.
I do not like players opting. I'm in the camp of not getting angry at them because I understand it. But I dislike as a fan when players opt out. I would not blame Eric Gray if he opted out right now and abandoned this ship, because I think that what we've seen, and we've kind of been dancing around it, not intentionally. We're saying it in every way, but straight up saying it. I think what we're seeing from a lot of the players in some situations, we can get into the whole argument of the coaching that they're receiving, or maybe their ability to absorb coaching and development. But I think we're seeing some people that at this point have, just mailed it in, to use that term, or they're just not, they've checked out. They've mentally checked out. The season is done, over with, a wash for them. I'm not going to go out there and put in any effort and things like that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, let me clarify. I guess Stoops does have one more year. I can't keep up with
Good Lord.
all of these different years and COVID years and redshirt years and
Because
whatnot.
he was a redshirt freshman. He was a redshirt freshman the Kyler year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been
Yeah.
so I guess he's been here plenty. And I mean, I wouldn't blame him if he just decided to say hey, I'm just gonna go to graduate school somewhere, just go another alley. I understand he's an Oklahoma legend, but it's what else does he have to do here?
Make NIL money.
Well, it's
So
love of
the
the
thing,
game.
too. Love of the game.
Yeah, there's
and,
love of the game. True.
Well,
and
we've
you can
made
actually
the
make
argument
money off of it now. So
Legally.
legally,
We've made the argument, and we're very pro Stoops, but we've made the argument that maybe Drake Stoops, if you just look at his stats, even his performance stats, probably shouldn't be a first-team receiver at a major, school, like a major Power 5 school like this. And he didn't get this through nepotism. I mean, he worked hard for this. So I'm sure he could play anywhere else.
I think with his work ethic, he would have done well at Iowa.
Yeah, I don't think he would go
okay,
anywhere.
that's
He's
uncalled
got
for.
really good hands too. I mean, he got a
say he should go
scholarship
to
offer to
Iowa.
go play. No, that's
Well,
where he got his
not
other
Iowa.
scholarship. So he got a scholarship offer to go play at Iowa, and then everywhere else was not FBS. And then he got a preferred walk-on with pretty much all coverage to come to OU because Papa is pretty much on this contract here where no matter who his kids is, they get paid college.
It's a royal family.
So
of
to
OU
be fair, nobody would does well under Brian Ferentz anyways, except unless you're a tight end, then you'll probably do well.
True.
But no, I mean it's tricky, and I don't know. I wonder. Look, the past couple games, what have they I think they might have been mailing. They've probably been mailing this in since Baylor, is what it feels like. It's and I gotta say, Jameson, how much of this do you put on the shoulders of the coaches, of the coaching staff, the coaches, from Brent to Levy, except for Ted Roof is about as about as useful as a freaking garden gnome out there. He doesn't do anything. So really, it's Levy and Venables. How much do you put blame on them?
I was at the point where I was leaning more coaches at the beginning of the year, but as we've watched the same things happen over and over, and we see adjustments, we see improvements. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, little tiny improvements here and there, but then something like you're finally making this perfect little sculpture look pretty. Like you're on Great British Baking Show right now, and you have this wonderful sculpture, and you're like, oh, look, it looks so good. Then you turn to your right, and the thing you just fixed a couple minutes ago is now collapsed and shattered. Like that's exactly what this OU football program is. And that's just players. They can't keep up with it because there's no sense of stability. There's no one to lean on. We said the offensive line was, oh my God, did the offensive line disappoint for us on Saturday? There's Eric Gray's our only person I can really say wow, there he is. I mean, our best players are the guys who are almost losing his games right now. Marvin Mims with his drop passes the past couple weeks. Like those are huge momentum things. We don't have a fallback. There's broken pieces everywhere we look.
I want to point out really quick, Bobby sounds like he's maybe having headphone connection issues. Eric Gray had a 200+ yard game with our O-line performing like they did. So that's just, once again, we do have to praise and emphasize the things, because there were things that were done correctly on the player side. It is a lot of, I mean, ultimately it's an individual thing, and you don't want to embrace the toxicity, of sitting out there and casting blame at people. But you also have to be able to understand the nuance of, we're not trying to cast blame and just sort of, kick the players while they're down. Obviously, no one is feeling these losses more than the players themselves, but you have to be able to take an objective look at it. And that's what we're trying to provide, for everyone here. So don't think that we're anti-player or something like that, but it's just, it's objectively, if you look at it straight up, try to remove as much emotion as you can, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt right now that there is a significant portion of the blame to be put on the players. Ultimately, the buck stops at the coaches, but the coaches make the calls. They don't go out there and execute them.
The players are at like 80% right now. But I'll say this, Bobby, and I'll kick it back to you because I want to put this out there before I forget. The coaching decision to kick that field goal in the torrential downpour, whenever we were just gashing them over and over and over in the run game, you take the ball out of your best player and give it to a guy who's already missed a field goal, and a horrible, like, you're on the road in the rain to kick it. Just not a good idea. Not a good idea. But, young coaches, I guess not young coaches, amateur coaches who haven't been head coaching and making these kind of decisions for a long time, sometimes they make the wrong decisions. So, I mean, I'm not going to blame him too much for that, but that was a bad decision.
Yeah. And in his press conference afterwards, he did say, like, why essentially we're horrible on third down.
And he didn't believe in us. Down. He said he did not believe that we could convert. I was like, Are you kidding me? Like, I understand, but like that, you got to think about the drive that you were just playing with that momentum. Like, I don't care if you were 1 for 11, third down, you're struggling the whole game. What you were doing that whole drive was not what you've been seeing for the earlier parts of this game. You continue to do that. And I guarantee you, if you brought out the analytics, the analytics told you, and that's not considering the weather, because the analytics doesn't bring into some of those things, told you probably go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you said, situationally, it makes no sense to do that. I get that they're like, look, Schmidt, it's in his range. It wasn't an awful attempt, but with the weather and everything, you got to go for it. I mean, you got to believe in your guys. I feel like the second that thing missed, and it just felt like not a white flag, but it felt not. I don't know how to describe it. It just felt very.
It's a fine line, is what it is.
Cowardly?
Because it's
maybe
not
cowardly. I don't know. Maybe not cowardly.
You got to be careful with it. You got to be really careful with it, because it's like sometimes whenever you go for it on fourth down, and if you would have missed it, we'd have just been getting the complete opposite. Why aren't we kicking it? That's within Schmidt's range. It just ended up not being the best decision, and it didn't work out. So obviously he's going to get a lot of the flack. And that's what happens with those big time money making decisions. And hopefully maybe you shouldn't be in those positions whenever you're playing West Virginia, whenever you are playing like the way we did, all the boneheaded mistakes that we made throughout the game. You shouldn't be in that decision on the road in Morgantown.
No, I think you're 100% right on that. It's not just that play call. It's not just that. It's the fact that OU is a better team. I felt like for the most part, until they needed to be, they were a better team for basically 3 out of 4 downs. And then they would have that one down where everything just kind of went to hell. And it was the one, it would always be like that one play you needed to keep the drive going, to keep the drive alive, or to get West Virginia off the field. And that's the difference between winning and losing football games, is the ability to make the play, to close it out, to not make a mistake. And the thing that's frustrating to me is so many of those times where things were going right, you just need to make one more play, and this thing really breaks open, they botch it. They screw it up. And that's the thing that's so tricky is, I mean, look, this is our third loss that is close, that was winnable. And to go 0 of 3 in situations like that is very disheartening. It's very disheartening to me. Ty?
Yeah, when I look at it specifically, looking at the coaching angle or the coaching decision angle, a couple things really stand out to me. One, and I very unfortunately do not recall, it was I believe West Virginia's final drive. There was a play where West Virginia converted a first down with a quarterback run, and that play really stands out to me as sort of what we talked about earlier with the players, and this will tie into my coaching point. Our play call was excellent. We had an excellent play call. It blew up West Virginia's play, and Danny Stutzman ended up initiating contact, which should have been good. Like, it wasn't a glancing blow. Like, he initiated good contact 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and then couldn't complete the tackle. So, like, the play was there. We got our X onto their O in the backfield. Should have been over. Should have been, they lose 2 yards and are forced to punt. But then the tackle was not executed, and they have their guy go run through and convert the first down. And that really stood out to me as, hey, the coaching call was there. The coaching, the strategy, the play call on that specific play was there, and that was not executed by the players. And I think that there maybe are some issues, and I know I gave a defensive example. On the offense, I see this a lot as well. I think there are some issues coaching-wise with us not calling plays that are within the realm of capability of the talent that we have. We're basically giving our first graders fifth grade reading assignments, and then being surprised that they're not completing their homework is sort of how I see it at this point. I mean, at some point you have to water things down to the level of talent that you have. Like, you're executing stuff or calling stuff that your talent can reasonably execute versus calling what should be like excellent strategy. And I see this a lot offensively. Like, we'll call these, I think brilliant sequences of sort of jab, 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 short plays that open up that long play. And then we get that long play open and either Mims drops it, or more often than not, Gabriel can't get it anywhere close to a wide open guy that it should be a touchdown. And like, there was like at least 3 of those plays that I can point to in this game where it was a touchdown if the pass could have been completed. And it's a completely different night and day game and season for us. But also with the coaching, one thing that really jumps out to me is sort of our pacing of the game. And it ties into what I just said, is I feel like, I think Jameson just pointed this out, we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes. We have these really great sequences and drives, and then we just call something really weird that doesn't make sense. It completely blows up our pacing. It changes the down length. And then, like when we try to take 2 big shots on first and second down, and then we end up third and long, passing is not working. Now, are we going to run it on third and long, or what are we going to do?
Third and long is not really our thing either. We're horrible on third and long.
And then, my sort of my last point on the pacing is the fourth quarters specifically of the last couple games, we get down to that like less than 10 minutes, more than 5 minutes time span. And I see no sense of urgency. And when the game is tied, like it was in this one, or close like it was in the Baylor one, there needs to be that sense of urgency in our play calling. Like, we're play calling like OU in the playoff game against Georgia when we were up by 2, or like we're acting like we're up by like 28 with 2 minutes left and we're just trying to run down the clock. Like, there's no urgency. And then it's like we go and just do a drive where we eat up a ton of clock and then punt it. Like, we're up. Like, it doesn't make sense strategy wise, like you guys have pointed out. So there are some definite coaching gripes when it comes to strategy. I at this point, I don't think we can make any estimates on the coach's ability to develop and coach players, because I think we don't have the level of player to do that. And then our players that are good were already developed when these coaches came in. So I don't know, but there are definitely some strategy and decision making during the game on our coaches that I would like to see, and I have full faith that they will get ironed out and they will learn. This is Venables' first year as a coach. I see coaching like being a quarterback. You don't expect a Heisman from your quarterback in his first year.
So, Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that lack of rhythm and the lack of ability to convert on third and fourth was absolutely huge. Like last week, we talked about how it was a close game with Baylor, but what did us in were the turnovers. 3 turnovers versus their 1, we lose. In this case, no turnovers, which is great. However, we got absolutely blasted on third and fourth down.
And we won the turnover battle. Let's not forget to say that.
Yeah, we won the turnover battle, but when you go 1 for 11 on third, 0 for 2 on fourth, so 1 of 13 on critical downs, and then West Virginia on the other hand, 7 of 19 on third down, and by the way, 4 of the ones they missed converted on fourth down, 4 of 5 on fourth down. That is unacceptable. That is where the game is won and lost, and you got to execute in those plays. You got to execute in those money-making plays, or else you lose. You lose to a bad West Virginia team that is about to fire the entire athletic administration.
Yeah, they fire their AD and right after a Sooner win. That just does not leave a good taste in my mouth. And I know that there's the big picture here to look at it. Kind of like I said, I'm disappointed, just feel helpless. The biggest thing with this in my mind after this loss is not about our record, not about making a bowl this year. I don't care about making some 6-6, 7-5 bowl and how we finish the rest of the season. I don't care about this season. I care about next season. I care about the future and like how are the recruits going to respond to this? And let me say, thank God that this year is an ugly one for Texas A&M. 3-7. Oh my God, they are really helping us out because obviously they're one of our biggest competitors.
I'm glad you. I had a note in my pre-podcast notes where I said if things get really depressing or sad and we're just down on our like, being really depressing on the pod, I need to point out at least we're not A&M to change the mood. So
right.
A&M's in the 5th year of this. Like that's the thing that's really embarrassing. Like we at least are just now starting off. What a mess there.
That Jimbo buyout is thick. It is really thick. Texas having a good year, but like as recency bias right now with the recruits, like looking at what just happened that TCU game, prime time on game day, in Austin, that's not obviously the best look for them either. And it's going to be a tough road for them to make a Big 12 championship. And, other competing guys that were going against Notre Dame, Bobby saw it. Like that Navy game wasn't sexy. And obviously they had the big win versus Clemson, but like they lost to Marshall this year. This is not their finest of years. A lot of these teams that we're competing with in recruiting battles right now, thank God they're doing poor because their negative recruiting towards us can kind of be turned a little bit back on them. We can start pointing a little bit of fingers here and there, but you got to worry about, guys like PJ Adebawore possibly taking a visit to Ohio State. I know people have been going into the dark depths of Twitter and saying, oh, he's following the Ohio State recruiting people on Twitter now. I mean, yeah, of course he's going to do his due diligence and look. But I mean, I would blame him if he didn't. He's getting a lot more attention now that he's played a little bit more this season and people are seeing his gifts. Why not? Anthony Evans, Georgia. Why wouldn't you look at Georgia over us? We threw only to 3 wide receivers passes versus West Virginia. 3. I don't care if it's raining. Only 3 wide receivers caught. What am I going to come in as a freshman and just sit and wait for 3 years before I can catch a pass? Like, damn right I'm looking at him. But there's some optimism. I'll talk a little bit later in the podcast where thank God that we have them coming in for Oklahoma State and they'll give us one more shot because, it's not over right now. Whenever they come in and we can directly implant what we're trying to put on them, and hopefully we do a good, have a good performance versus Bedlam, which probably, what we've been seeing, I'm not confident in it, but it's not over. We still got a chance.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, let's just kind of close the book on West Virginia and kind of move towards these last 2 games because I think, even though for me, like, it doesn't matter where we end up bowl-wise, at this point, it's about making a bowl because, as I was saying, those extra practices matter. And Lord knows they need these extra practices, especially these young guys. It helps set a standard, helps move on. It's needed. It's very, 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 very needed. So, y'all cool with just turning the page and moving on to
Yeah, I have
Bedlam, Oklahoma State. Ty, you want to?
I have one final, very short thought. There is a silver lining in all of this, only for me, not for you two, but there is a silver lining in all of this for me.
Oh,
I
boy.
was mocked. I was laughed at. I was cast aside. My opinions, my takes were cast aside when I said that Dylan Gabriel returning would not fix our problems. Our two worst losses to the two worst teams we've lost to have been with him. Obviously, you know, there's a whole other big arguments for why we lost those and how it wasn't his fault. But we continue to lose with Dylan Gabriel, so I stand by my take that he returning was not the key to us winning. I'm not trying to set you off. I'm saying
he's not us in contention.
He's not the key to winning, obviously, but he's not good enough to like take up for the bad defense
for
and
us
the
to
bad
win.
offensive line.
Yeah.
Well, no, the Baylor game when he had
enough
3 turnovers. This game is a different argument.
But what do you think?
He could have easily had 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 in this game if things went his way. But obviously, that's a shoulda, woulda, coulda. But
if things went his way, as in if he could complete a pass.
Well, in one case, Marvin Mims just dropped it. Like twice, actually.
And then Marvin Mims got caught from behind. Like, I don't know what the weather was, but you don't get caught if you're Marvin Mims. I obviously the momentum and how he is running the route, he might have been thrown a little bit of a hair underthrown, but still, what I'm trying to say is there's a couple of things that if you just flip the coin one way, it could have been a lot different. It's just he's not Kyler Murray, he's not Baker Mayfield, he's not Jalen Hurts, he's not making all of our deficiencies on the defense and the rest of the team.
He's not Blake Bell or Trevor Knight.
Woof.
I disagree with that. But
here's the thing, and Jimmy just said in the chat. I think this is a great transition and kind of talking into the future, and we can hit a little bit on Oklahoma State. Jackson will be coming in next year. If he stays, obviously people are going to start chirping, but I feel pretty good about him staying. I'm not too worried. I know people are talking about Notre Dame and then possibly having, I saw some Instagram posts today. It's like, there's going to be a possible flip of a 5-star, 4-star quarterback into Notre Dame. They list like 10 guys. I'm like, so you sent all their offers as a possible flip and you think Jackson Arnold could be one. And that's what we're worrying about. Come on, let's wait until we get there. Let's not completely dive into that absolutely horrible take. If he does flip to Notre Dame, I'd be super surprised, but that Instagram post is not going to make me worry one bit. So throw that in the trash right now. Let's not take about that. But you know, I from the recruiting aspect of this, looking at what we're doing, obviously it's negative, but Jeff Lebby, he could probably go up to Jackson Arnold like, hey, we're cool. We believe in each other. And I'm going to be honest, brutally honest with you right now. I cannot call anything that I want to Dylan Gabriel. He does not have the ability to do what I want. As soon as he gets any pressure, can't make the plays, cannot extend the plays. He does not have the wheels that you do. He does not have the football IQ that you do. He does not have the accuracy that you do. And I understand you're a true freshman, but I can't call the offense that I want to with him. And he's not unlocking my true potential for this offense. You have the tools to do that. True freshman quarterback hearing that, saying I can come in, play a blue blood, Oklahoma as a true freshman. Not many guys can say that in our history of our football program. I think that's got to be a huge positive for a quarterback. Obviously, there's people like defensive linemen can come in and play early, and that's, seductive for a guy like Hicks. But quarterback coming in and playing at true freshman, look at all of the hype Drake May is getting at North Carolina. I mean, this is North Carolina right now coming and playing as a freshman, and he's going to be like Heisman favorite next year. Probably. Yeah. That's what happens with these freshmen. They come in and they have a good year. They don't have to have a great year. They have a good year as a true freshman. Oh man, they're getting talked about for 2 straight years, and then they're going to be a draft pick, even if they do have a disappointing year in their sophomore, junior year.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something you dangle out there and, hope he is a fan of, because I don't, if he is who he says he is, he looks great. I've seen the tape. I've seen what he's done at Den Geyer, and he can compete for that starting job. If you say, hey, look, it's an open competition, Dylan Gabriel, doesn't automatically have this, I think that's something that would be very, very appealing. So hopefully that's a pitch they're making across the board, the ability to play early, especially because I'm pretty sure we're about to get a transfer portal exodus here in the coming weeks. Across the board from older guys. So I think that is a plus. And thankfully, we're not Texas A&M, where they can't even have a bowl game. So it's not good, but it's not full dumpster fire just yet. I think there is kind of, you can salvage a little bit, like not all the way. But it's not, we're not full meltdown just yet, I don't think.
Where's Jackson Arnold from?
Denton, Texas.
Okay, yeah. Let's get him playing. Yeah, because the guys from Hawaii and South Carolina don't know how to play football.
That's
from Arizona.
From Arizona, but still.
Who's from Arizona?
Are you talking about Spencer Rattler?
No, I was talking about Gabriel and Bevel. Bevel's from South.
Okay. Good point.
Oh, I see the confusion. Yeah,
I see the
you were just in a past episode talking about how no one from Arizona does anything.
No, if you're a quarterback and you're not from Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, California,
the DMV,
maybe Georgia, Alabama. If you're not from like a southern state or California, I do not want you on my team because you don't know how to play football. And the Carolinas are not southern states. I've lived in both. They're not southern states.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's dive a little bit into Bedlam itself. So, 6:30 kickoff on ABC.
Woo, and Texas Tech 6:30, baby. Let's go. We're in and out on night games in the year, right when it gets cold.
Look, I'm okay with the Tech night game. I'm not too fond of. Vibes can change at a moment's notice. It's always weird playing at Tech in Lubbock at night, and I don't know if OU can handle it. But Bedlam at home, I don't know. I think the energy. Look, I know the record's not good. I know people are mad, but it's Bedlam, and I think people can back if they back this team, show up, be loud, make a great environment. We've got our weird lights going. I don't know. I have a weird feeling about Bedlam. 7 OU is a 7.5 point favorite here.
At 7.5 now. We got the line to half up. Oh my god.
Let me double check.
It's at 7. It's at 7 right now on DraftKings, but you got to get minus 120 on it when it's plus 100 at plus 7 for Oklahoma State. So it's just before we know it, it's going to hit up to 7.5.
Yeah, it's knocking on the door of 7.5. So big opportunity for OU if they win. This is it's bowl eligibility. You avoid automatically don't have to go into Lubbock and try to get that win to get bowl eligible, and avoid getting that dark mark of being the first team since the John Blake era to miss a bowl.
1998.
An ugly thing. But Jameson, I think no matter what, we kind of know who this OU team is. But we don't really know what Oklahoma State team we'll see show up. As mentioning in the comments, Spencer Sanders' availability changes a lot for Oklahoma State here. If he plays Jameson, how screwed are we?
I don't think there's an if. I think he is playing. I think that was the whole plan all along for him to sit out with kind of a shoulder injury that is a pain that he probably should be waiting a couple more weeks for to get fully 100%. But this is the end of the road for Spencer. He needs to go out there and do what he can. And they gave Gunnar Gundy his time last week, and it wasn't working versus Iowa State. Spencer came in, saved the day for him, and won him. Sanders was going to be playing versus Bedlam no matter what, and that's why he had pads on and versus Iowa State. He was good enough to play, but they just didn't want him to. He's playing in Bedlam, and it makes you worry. Obviously, if he doesn't have any mental blocks where he's playing like he was pre-injury, maybe he might not be performing like he was pre-injury, but if he's playing like the same style, it's scary. Did you see what Garrett Green did to us? Running the ball all over us? Do you see what Adrian Martinez did to us? This is an age-old story, and I'd hate to bring up the past defense of Oklahoma, but all OU fans hate running quarterbacks because they always destroy us. They always destroy. I have like a laundry list of 10 names I could talk to you about our history.
Buddy, I don't even think you need to look at the past. Look at like a couple days ago, Garrett Green comes up.
That's what I just said.
One. Yeah, I know. I was saying you don't even need to look at the past. It's happening.
And
now.
Adrian Martinez had the game of his career versus us too. Like it's obviously it's a problem with us this year. And there's a lot of things going wrong with Oklahoma State as well. And people are like, okay, they had to bounce back and beat Iowa State. Come on. Iowa State looks like booty this year, and they honestly, Iowa State should have won that game. It's just Deckers threw 3 horrible interceptions. Oklahoma
Sounds
State was
familiar.
not playing like they wanted to win, honestly, right? So and we both have our faults. And with Spencer Sanders coming back, if he puts this team on his shoulders and can hold it on his shoulder, it's scary. That's 7. That's a lot. That's a lot for a team that just lost to West Virginia.
Yeah, for sure. Ty, your takes.
How about I have a bone to pick, where I guess we're gonna have to teach them a lesson for the 3rd time in a row. The nation of Germany singing "Country Roads." Why at their NFL game? I think they were just rubbing it in. I think they were rubbing it in. I think it's anti-OU sentiment in Germany, and for the 3rd time in a row, we're gonna have to teach Germany a lesson, unfortunately. But when it comes to it gets kind of a confusing joke. They had that NFL game in Germany against Tampa Bay and Seattle.
I know
your German fans kept singing. No, I know you guys knew. I'm just trying to make it clear, because otherwise it's, if you didn't, but they sang "Country Roads" a bunch for some reason, because when I think Florida versus Seattle, I think West Virginia song, but
in Germany.
But Oklahoma State worries me. I don't think we're going to cover at all. I don't understand why the line is at 7 at all. I don't understand why OU is the favorites. I have faith in OU, but like we've talked about, the things that they can do worry me. I mean, we have just lost the 2 not very good teams when it comes to their Big 12 record, and Oklahoma State has really fallen off. They've really stumbled, or I've been using the term, it just sort of broke them when they lost to TCU, but they were very competitive for the rest of the time before that loss to TCU and then their last couple of games. So I don't know. I am certainly worried about Oklahoma State, but I think it will be a great atmosphere at OU. We got the night kick, and I'm not trying to, I know we normally do atmosphere at the end. I'm not trying to wrap us up, but we got the night kick. The ticket prices are still really high. Maybe that's just Oklahoma State fans buying them, but you have to remember Oklahoma State, they're getting their first shot at us since all the news about everything. They're still angry at that. They're getting to come to Norman as
they had the news last year, right?
Not the betting favorites. I'm talking about to come to Norman.
First shot at coming to Norman and trying to take us out.
That's what you mean. Yeah, not the betting favorites, but I think in any reasonable observer of college football should assume that Oklahoma State are the favorites. I really don't know why Vegas isn't seeing that, but I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, and I think above all, this one matters, and I really hope that our players and our team realize that, because this matters a whole lot to the fans. This matters a whole lot. We make jokes all the time about Oklahoma State's not actually our rival. We have, a couple rivals. We have Texas and rivals we don't play anymore, like Nebraska. I know we played them this year, but and we got future rivals like LSU. But this one matters. This one matters a lot to the fans. This one matters a lot to the state of Oklahoma, and this is the one that everyone talks about, all the time. And it matters a whole lot to Oklahoma State. They're going to be coming in and giving us their best shot. Do not take their performance at Kansas State or anything else as indicative of what they're going to bring into Norman. They're going to, nothing is going to be off the table. I mean, we're late in the season. There's no more arguments about, we're saving the playbook. They're not saving the playbook for something else. They're going to go to a decent bowl game, presumably for them, but this is their bowl game. This is their Super Bowl, to use the term, and it matters a whole lot. And I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. I just hope that it doesn't get out of hand.
And I'll say this. I think there's a real danger of this getting out of hand in the other way. And I think, I feel like we've said this in the past to OU fans of, don't boo, keep trying to stay as positive as you can. But if you start booing this OU team, if they start bad in Bedlam at home, I'm just saying that's something they're going to be holding over us forever. So I mean, you can't control OU fans, but at the same time, I think keeping positivity early is important, because this thing can spiral, because these are kids. mostly kids, and I don't think the booing really works very well.
Is that really holding something over it? If the argument OU fans don't like it when OU is bad, that's
They're
like
poker
a,
fans.
No. What I'm
burn.
saying is, like,
Pokes.
we went into your house and made you boo your team. Like,
Pokes are gonna use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I know Blake was trolling when he said this, but I subscribe to the idea of we should make it very well known that we do not support anything but absolute success at Oklahoma.
But I don't think that's productive. I don't.
I'm not saying tweet at the players because I would never
condone
condone anyone having a Twitter account. Period.
You think the players and the coaches don't already know that we are absolutely upset and are very angry with them? Because I guarantee you they know that.
They do.
Their confidence, what little that they
good.
had, there's none there. Honestly, they're playing on thin ice every single time they step on a football field right now because 5 losses and 5 wins at OU is
but
not
I mean,
a recipe
if you were
Like,
a surgeon who has done 10 surgeries so far and you've lost 5 patients and 5 have been successful, and of the 5 that were successful, a couple were like just barely, and it's just kind of a coin flip that it was, you would be getting worse than booze, right? So these people are being paid better than surgeons in some cases. So I don't,
it just doesn't seem productive. Like, I think what that really is if you're doing surgery and things are getting stressful, having someone in your ear yelling, "Boo, boo, boo, I'm going to sue you." Like, that doesn't help.
What about, do you think the patient is your opponent? They go under anesthesia and like, I hope you lose. I'm going to do everything I can for this surgeon to lose right now. Obviously, there's so many faults with this analogy.
It's not a good analogy.
That's just, obviously it was comedic. But yeah, what's the booing going to do? They already know, and their confidence is already shot. It's going to do nothing but negative. So if you want to be selfish and boo and let your emotions overtake you and boo at people and to make them worse, go for it. That's your choice, but you're just being stupid. What do you want your booing to do? Is it to make you feel better? Cool. Good for you. But if you truly want OU to be better and don't care about yourself, and be selfish, be positive. Be quiet if you want to boo. Leave the game if you want to frickin' boo. I don't care.
Yeah.
No, don't go to the bars. OU fans get even madder at you if you leave the game early and go to the bars.
No, in this case, just go to the bars instead. Just I'll say this, like, not only that, but if you boo, like, imagine how bad that looks for recruiting. Like,
we need this game so bad for recruiting, so bad. Like, please, we need everyone on their best behavior. Like, I cannot say that anymore.
Well, so let me make it clear. I am saying this as a bit. But if you do go and choose to boo and you're going to influence people around you to boo, the right way to boo is with a purpose. You can't just blindly be booing like my dog is barking in the background right now. Dogs, they're not saying anything when they bark. Like, this is science. You can look this up. Dogs aren't saying anything when they bark. It's just like an involuntary reaction when they're feeling a certain way. It's like an expression of their emotion at the moment, right? Don't boo just because you're upset. Like, you're just barking like a dog, like nothing is being achieved. Here we go again. Second podcast in a row calling people dogs. Right. When we booed Spencer Rattler,
you made the same analogy earlier, just not with dogs.
We booed Spencer Rattler with a purpose, and we said, we want Caleb. So if you're going to start booing our players, right, learn the names of some of the recruits that are visiting and start chanting, we want.
Now, there you go.
We got a recruit name. We got a recruit name. Say we got a quarterback name like Dave visiting,
Arnold.
right?
We want Jackson Arnold.
Jackson. If you guys start booing Dylan Gabriel, which you should before the game even starts, right? It's shocking he's even still on this team. This is Oklahoma. This is quarterback U. Start chanting, "We want Jackson." Give it a hype up the recruits. Or else I'm going to send the Dr. Pepper sheriff after you guys.
I just think fan involvement should be productive in this, and I think that's making a ton of noise when the guys in orange are on the field, and not as much when the guys in red are on the field on offense. I don't know, because here's the thing: it's frustrating and all that, but they still do need our support. So, and this atmosphere needs to be 10 out of 10. It's on national TV for some God knows reason, and look, there's still a chance to have a relatively positive end of the season. I think Bedlam would be that. I think winning a Bedlam game would be nice.
Yeah, it's just doing what we're supposed to do. I don't know how positive it is. It's just neutral, honestly. If we win these next two games, honestly, I still think it's a neutral. It's a relief. I think that's a better word. I don't think it's a positive still. I think that it's still very negative what we've done so far, but it's a damn relief because we are treading water hard right now and we are gasping for air. And man, would it feel nice just to have a little float come up next to us to where we can keep treading some water. But right now, I mean, we're in danger of sinking. And I don't care if we miss a bowl game. I really don't care. All I care is if we show some kind of life raft to the recruits, some hope that can get us to the future. How's this for an analogy? Is this a little bit better? We need a little life raft to let us stay afloat for a little bit longer until our safety, comes to save us. I mean, that's really, we just need time. That's all we need. And we just need the recruits to stay. That's all it is.
I think making a bowl game would help. Just to be like, okay, we made a bowl game. It's nothing to cheer about, nothing to be proud of, but it's not embarrassing. It's avoiding as much embarrassment as possible.
Yeah, it's the act of making a bowl game isn't the thing. It's the act of not missing a bowl game.
Well, exactly.
The streak, that matters, and the streak matters. We can't lie about it like we do about our stadium record, about our continuous home games sold out. Like, yeah, they're sold out just because the online people scalp them. Like, you go to a game and the upper deck on the visitor side is empty. But I think the bowl game is important. I'm not as worried about Texas Tech. Obviously, we're putting the cart far ahead of the horse here with looking ahead to Texas Tech, but I'm not worried about them. I think this game, all jokes aside, is very winnable, and all jokes or enduring bits or characters that we play on the podcast aside, if you objectively look at things, specifically with this OU team and with Dylan Gabriel and any other specific you want to point at, there are a lot of things that are up to chance. There are a lot of things that flip the coin, they could have gone another way. Very famously last year, flip a coin with the Nebraska team, and it's a whole nother record for the 2021 Nebraska team. And that is, sometimes guy drops a pass. That's chance, that's skill, that's whatever. Guy, play calls, just freak things. Ball bounces away or doesn't. This game is very within our grasp. I think, honestly, I know we've lost the last two. Excluding the turnovers in the Baylor game, if for the most part, with some minor improvements, obviously, and a little bit of Sooner magic, if we play broadly, better, a little bit better, but if we play broadly, similarly to what we did in the last two games, this game is at least in sight. But you can make the argument, the last two games were very much in sight right until the very end, and we lost them. But I don't think this one, I know people are worried, maybe Oklahoma State, things click and this gets out of hand. I don't think that this one is going to get out of hand, and I think we will get some buy-in from the players, hopefully. And I think fan involvement is part of that. The general vibe and the atmosphere can be felt. They feel it on campus to some extent. There's a lot of students that don't really care about football nowadays. These Gen Z kids, I'll tell you right now. But they feel it in the towns, they feel it online, they feel it in the stuff, and you got to keep the faith as the fans. And I think that the fans are sort of the enduring part of the program. If you're an OU fan, you're an OU fan for life, and it is overwhelmingly a blessing. I think I speak for all of us, and we're all in our mid-20s, and it's been a blessing for pretty much our entire lifetimes. It was when we were babies, things were a little sketchy, but we had our Cowboys that were doing good, at least when I was born.
The Dallas kind.
Yeah, yeah. Important note on this podcast. We had our Dallas Cowboys and good old King Switzer. But things are not out of hand. I'm still optimistic about the future. I think we'll make a bowl, but it is very important, and we cannot coast to it, And obviously, as fans, as everyone listening, and us, it's out of our hands. But I do think, your vote matters. Your vote with your dollars, how you spend them, going to the games or not matters, and your vote with your support all contributes to the overall vibes, as the kids would say nowadays. The information environment, as the government would say, but the atmosphere, as sports fans would say.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of thinking about that, Jameson, I want to kind of get your thoughts on something that just came out today. The Crimson and Cream Collective, I guess, just launched a new initiative.
Mhm.
3 million to raise $3 million in 30 days. This is backed by Venables, Castiglione, Joe Haraz. I'm just saying, like, is this a panic button sort of thing, or what are your vibes on this?
I think I don't know how much it was. Oh, we need to get $3 million now. We're making a move. I think it was probably in the works, and it was very strategic. Whenever they released it, obviously, I think that there's a lot of guys that are going to hit the portal, and some guys might just let go. They're the older guys that probably only have a year or so left of eligibility. You're like, okay, we can let them go. But there's guys on this, on this team that are young, have a lot of hope and talent that sure as hell I'd be using some 3 million on. Think Jalil Farouk. Man, he looked really good. And if we lost him, a young wide receiver, and we're not giving too much run to our younger wide receivers, that would hurt for our future. I think like Javonte Barnes, when he's been healthy, man, he's looked really good. He's already eclipsed, I know Marcus Major might not be the healthiest right now, but he seems to be RB2. And it would really hurt if somehow we lose him. Jaden Gibson, even though he's not playing this year, it's like we heard all these positive things. Like, he's a true freshman, hasn't played a lot, and he got all this hype. I'm sure that's pretty disappointing for him. It might be helpful to give him a little extra money on the side as well. There's a lot of things. And then plus talk about recruiting, man, would it be helpful to have couple extra bucks to push us over the edge that we couldn't have done versus David Hicks whenever the bag man came for him in A&M. Could have been a completely different story. Both of our teams, Hicks with A&M and OU, both having extremely disappointing seasons. And once you commit to one team, it's hard to flip. It's so much harder to flip. And if we would have been the bagman rather than Texas A&M, could have been a different story, and he could have been sticking with us.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating because this is kind of how the game goes now. This is how this situation rolls. Auburn, by the way, had a similar thing. They had to raise, I think it was 10 billion in 30 days. They're like, this is our goal. They hit 13. So it's a new game, and it's something we all have to kind of play, and it's something that we need to, as a collective, like they need to put all the collectives together, put them into one, like Texas just did, because all of these disjointed ones are not working. But at the same time, I think it's something that you got to invest in. Unfortunately, it's painful, it's frustrating, but that's college football now, I guess. So I guess that's what we got to do as bagmen. Pay the money to the university, and then pay the money to the kids. Pay the money all the way if you want your team to win football games. So that's just kind of how it is, I suppose.
It's the classic joke that people make nowadays about everything that you use nowadays, specifically in the media creating their like plus program. It's just OU football plus. Sign up for our ad-free experience if you pledge a certain number of dollars a month. I mean, it's but I think you're right. I'm not reading into it too much. I really don't think I think you're right, as in both of you guys. I don't think it's an act of desperation. I think it was going to occur either way. And I think if we were doing good, everyone would be like, oh yeah, we're exploiting the success really well. Or you can make the negative argument, oh, they're trying to ride this hype just to get more money. I think this is the nature of college football now and in the short-term future. Obviously, a lot of things can change in the midterm future when it comes to, is the NCAA going to be there? How are the conferences going to look like and things like that? But at least in the short-term future, as we figure out the NIL thing, as we still continue to figure that out, and the money thing, it's an interesting environment, because what we're seeing is they're expecting sort of micro pledges in the grand scheme of things, because like, I don't know what the minimum is, but let's say $10 to $100 a month from everyday fans. They're sort of treating people like they have the big donors, the way they've been treated for a long time, in a sense, right? Because they're coming to you and saying, hey, you pledge this amount of money a month and we'll enter you for a drawing. The big donors, they pledge and then they get to go get, box tickets that they pay for, but they're like essentially comped or sidelined sometimes if you're donating enough, or FaceTime with certain people or things like that. So I think it's just the nature of college football in the future. I don't think this is a sign of desperation or a sign of financial instability within the OU athletics department. I think we're doing fine financially, and we will continue to as we move towards the SEC. I don't think there's any sort of liquidity crisis or anything affecting OU athletics. I think this was inevitable, and if anything, maybe we sat on it, thinking that things were going to get turned around, and now it's just sort of too late. We have to drop it regardless. But I don't read into that as a sign of desperation. I know that's not what you guys were implying, but I think that's just the nature of the beast going forward, at least in the near term. Is it you got to get used to them sort of constantly poking you. I mean, it is now that we've sort of removed all the veil of amateurism and everything else, we've gotten rid of that. It affects the fan experience as well. And you're getting that, it is a machine designed to provide you with an entertainment product, but also increasingly to separate you from your money. And you're going to have to be okay with that in the future. And I think it would be normal in certain other contexts. But I think that with college football, it's weird because, the Bedlam game, right? Like you're paying, if you're buying single game tickets, $100 plus, and then you're getting bombarded with, you need to donate money to us every month as you pay $8 for a water bottle and things like that. So it's just the nature of the beast. I think people get used to it and won't even notice it when in future years.
Yeah, it's just how it is. And, I think it's frustrating because the kids should really be getting a cut of the TV deals, of more of the merch sales. Ultimately, the kids shouldn't be paid by, people who are already paying to enjoy said product. So I don't know. It's a broken, weird, funky system. And, who knows? Hopefully they figure it out. But, well, guys, I think that's pretty much all we have for this episode. Always tough talking about a loss, but you know what? We're almost there. 2 games left. We are almost done. We are almost done with this season. And then maybe we could get a little bit of a break. I saw a comment in the chat asking about OU basketball, and I already don't want to get into all that. I'm ready for my stickball sports. But final thoughts, anyone? Yes or no?
We're looking at you, David Hicks. We're looking at you, Taylor Wine. We're looking at you, Jackson Arnold, maybe Peyton Bowen. We're looking at you recruits this weekend. That's what I'm looking forward to the most too. If we can win, I'm looking at you. I'm not excited about this football team. I'm excited about the future.
Yep. Ty.
I am very excited. If you guys haven't given it a listen, I have fun doing it. And if you're a fan of college football, you might have fun. If anything, just to laugh at how bad we are at evaluating teams that aren't OU. Tune in on Wednesdays for we do what we call a weekend spread. We pick it's gambling line centric.
We're great,
but we're
usually good.
We are good. We're actually very, very good when it comes to podcasts and picking games. But we break down all the Big 12 games and then some of the other games with the gambling lines, courtesy of our sponsors at DraftKings. But it's just sort of us talking college football in general. We bring on a Baylor alum who claims to be a TCU fan, and we just have a good time. So,
hey, no one's below 500. We're still riding.
Hey, we're doing very well. We're doing very well. Especially with the fixed picks and everything. But all right, folks, that's all we got for this week.
Oh, we got a good viewer comment about Jackson Dart, who should be. You just opened a whole can of worms with me about how Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel.
Better.
Listen. This is a postscript. I'm sure Bobby might not put this on the actual podcast.
He
postscript.
Will.
Dylan Gabriel. In my opinion, I'm an expert because I'm on a podcast. In my expert opinion, Dylan Gabriel screwed OU not in his on-field performance, but in how quickly he announced his commitment to OU, because we missed out on an excellent transfer quarterback, transfer portal market. Bo Nix, your arguments about him, failing. Michael Penix at Washington, the leading guy when it comes to yards right now, or Jackson Dart. There were so many great quarterbacks, and I think no one bothered to even look at the OU market because the second Dylan Gabriel announced he was coming to Oklahoma, I think everyone looked at it and said, oh, he already knows their OC. There's no chance in going because there's going to be favoritism. I'm not even going to get a fair look. I'm going to go somewhere else. I think that's how he really screwed us. I would have loved to have seen Jackson Dart specifically, or Bo Nix, or Michael Penix, or literally anyone else. But I think we would be a 2-loss team with Jackson Dart. You heard it here first. And those losses would be TCU and Texas probably.
Oh, wow. Spicy take.
That's an expert opinion. That's an expert opinion, legally speaking.
Fair enough.
If there was a court case and they needed someone to talk about being on a podcast, I would be qualified to be an expert witness. Therefore, I legally
as is like half of America.
You have well. Here's the thing. I've heard that if you have 100 listeners, maybe 80 listeners, you're already in the top 10% of all podcasts in the world. So, woo, we did it.
And we'll have our podcast. We have a podcast attorney. We'll have him evaluate the legality of the statement I just made on Wednesday. So tune in for that as well.
Sure. But yeah, so check out the Weekend Spread on Wednesday. That'll be fun. We'll be recording live on YouTube, but otherwise you're going to hear it the next day on Thursday morning. But that's all we got. Make sure to check out DraftKings. Use promo code TPPN for all that good stuff. We would love that for y'all. So that's all we got for this week. We hope y'all have a good one. Hope to see y'all in Norman. And Boomer Sooner, everybody. Beat the Pokes.